All right, everybody, just so you know, we're live on Facebook right now. And the link is in your Zoom chat box. And I will let the guests in a minute or so. All right, everybody, just so you know, we're live on Facebook right now.
Jody, are you recording as well?
I am living on Facebook. Is that what you're asking, Daniela?
Are we recording this as well internally? Do you want me to
Oh.
set it up to record?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody ready? David, are you back? Juan, are you back? All right, I'm letting everybody in now.
Welcome, everyone. We're just gonna wait a moment or two to see who trickles in, and then we'll begin this discussion with this amazing group of artists. I'm Kuzi Cram, by the way, and I'll tell you a little bit about how this all came to be. Hello, welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Nice to see you. Do you want to get us started, Daniela, or do you want me to do it?
Just a fun moment for us to all gather. If people feel comfortable, turn on your videos so we can be in conversation together. You're going to be led by Kuzi Cram, and we're so honored to have Kuzi and these amazing artists share this wonderful program with you all. So thank you so much for your time in the middle of the storms. What better place to be than hunkering all together? So Kuzi, over to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Familiar faces, people I don't know. I'm Kuzi, and I'm a playwright, and I've worked at Rattlestick, and I'm also on the board of Rattlestick, happily. And I had this idea, and you know, I had this idea, I think sometime in September of last year, maybe August or September, that I would really like to be in conversation with artists in different mediums about what they were thinking about New York, and what they were thinking about the city, and things that excited them and interested them. And I think perhaps because it's my favorite subject, that was what led me to this. And I had a travel grant that I could not use because of the pandemic to go to Bolivia and Peru and do some research there on indigenous medicine that was supposed to become a Sloan play, which has not been written. Maybe it will, I don't know. And I started to think about traveling, and I was able to sort of like take this travel grant. It was from where I teach, and turn it towards something else. And I started thinking about traveling, and I started thinking a lot about how I love to travel in the city. Like I love going from one place to another. I mean, sometimes I don't, but in general, I really love the speed of which you can be in a completely different environment really quickly and hear different languages and feel different vibes. And I was missing traveling in the city. So I envisioned a project that I proposed to Daniela, of getting together a group of artists to explore places that had meaning for them in some way artistically in New York in this moment. And it was a way of kind of virtually traveling. We began this expedition absolutely on Zoom. And we're going to take it to the streets this weekend on Saturday in person. But it was a way to really kind of go all over the city and to kind of, to know what intrigues, incites, perplexes, inspires a really, really amazing group of artists. So that was my idea. An idea is nothing without people who make it happen. So I was really, I'm so grateful to Daniela for saying yes. She's very, very kind and says yes to Daniela Topol, artistic director of Rattlestick, says yes to my crazy ideas. I haven't stumped her yet. It might happen. And to Danilo Gambini, who helped administrate this award from this process, from how we chose people and how we did it. And then to Jody, who has been our line producer of this event and the complicatedness of Saturday, which is going to be so fun. So if you're intrigued by this, I really advise you to come along for the in-person part too. I did a little pilgrimage of the sites, and I was so, I don't know, I was just so excited and tickled and felt that I was looking at these places through the eyes of these artists from things that they've created. So we met and we talked about what interested us or what interested this group. And then they made a variety of things. And the thing that's been really exciting is that it's not just theater artists. I mean, though I love theater artists, don't get me wrong, because I'm a theater artist, but it's been, no offense, playwrights. I'm with you. I'm in your club. And we've had some multi-hyphenates here too. But people have responded and artistically responded and investigated. I think that we were called for artist investigators. So that's what we were looking, just to have an investigation, a conversation with a block in New York right now. And so we have a photographer, we have playwrights. Again, no dissing the playwrights. I'm one of you. We have a altered reality person film and altered reality, and we have a poet. So we have, all different forms that are looking at the city at this moment, and bringing a whole lot of insight and exploration and truth to New York right now. So yeah, that's block by block. That has been this really extraordinary venture that, selfishly was just for me to kind of to be in conversation about art in New York. And I think at a deeper level, I just believe that, as artists, we help, we are big creators in the future of the city, and we make it. And, as a friend of mine said, people don't come to New York to ride the subway, they come to see art. And so, we are very important, and we're at this moment when the city is changing and growing, and we don't know what it will be, but I think I want all of us who are makers to be loud about what we want, New York to be in. So anyway, so tonight is really it's going to be a little tapas, if you will, of all the experiences that people, all the art that people have been making around specific geographical places. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Ash Marination, who Ash, tell us about what block you chose and what drew you to it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ash. Thank you again for having me be part of this. This has been absolutely incredible. I chose the 42nd and 43rd Streets between 9th and 10th Avenues in Manhattan, which is actually where I live. It's called Manhattan Plaza. And some folks, I'm sure, on this phone call might be familiar with it. Manhattan Plaza is an artist building, a building for performing artists. And it's really unique. It's one of those really wonderful places that your income is based on 30% of what you bring in. So it's very supportive. It's supportive housing for people who have precarious jobs. And especially during the pandemic, it's been particularly helpful. And the reason, even outside of the pandemic, oftentimes the reason that people can stay in New York and pursue careers in performing arts. So we need more housing like Manhattan Plaza. I believe there's a space downtown West Beth, which also has a similar quality. But this is, after doing this project, it's very much a call to action of like, how do we make more of this? Because these communities are really important, and supportive housing is incredibly important. So I am I'm a documentarian. I'm a multidisciplinary documentarian. So I work primarily in theater, film, and photography. But today I'm going to be showing a photo essay. So this is a photo piece. I'm going to show it in two parts. They're both two small parts that feature the voices of Manhattan Plaza residents and photos that were taken during we started this project during the pandemic. So it's interesting, I think, about this moment with doing this project is that it is very, the bulk of doing the work, we were isolated. So you do see a lot of portraits and a lot of these like kind of isolated photos where Manhattan Plaza is very much a community and people are always together and communal, and people speak about that a bit in the interviews, but we don't really get to see that until probably just this month things started opening up. So so that's been a bit of the shift in the temporal scope of this. So I will share, and if there are any issues with the sound, just stop me and let me know. But I'm going to share part one, and then we will go into part two. They're both two quick parts.
This is the small town. It's a vertical small town. My name is Melinda Tanner. I'm a resident of Manhattan Plaza. I have lived here since the very beginnings of this building.
Well, my name is Obalanitet. That's my Lenape name. Well, Manhattan Plaza, I think, should be a model for many other housing complexes in the city and in the country, because it helps foster a multiracial working class community. In this case, it's mostly artists, but there are all kinds of people that live here.
The 9th Avenue building opened first. About 2 or 3 years later, they stopped construction because they, ran out of money and they didn't know where it was going to go. Then they started continuing on this 10th Avenue building. On Theater Row were all porno theaters. And then on the corner here was the West Side Airlines terminal. There was a West Side and an East Side Airlines terminal. So when you came here from anywhere in the world, you would go from the airport, if you took a bus or public transportation, to these airline terminals on the mainland, away from the airport, where you could buy tickets, check your luggage, get taxis. The managing director was Rodney Kerr. He was a very eccentric man, a minister from North Carolina. And he ran it like it was a small town. He performed weddings in the Ellington room. If you needed him to marry you, he would. Christen your child, he would. You could call him on the phone, go, I'm not happy. Something's wrong here. What do you think we should do? He would make exceptions if people screwed up. The original owner of the building was named Irv Fisher. Maybe people have spoken of him affectionately. He would go to West Bank for lunch, and you could walk up, and he'd ask you to sit down and buy you a drink at the table.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Manhattan Plaza kind of represents a kind of like a safeguard in Lower Hell's Kitchen against the gentrification and wealthy excesses that have kind of built up all around us. Last year, during the peak of the pandemic in New York City, I think everyone on their balconies and in the plaza area, banging their pots and pans and shouting is certainly, I think, a way of showing solidarity and support. I think the Christmas carols down in the park area during the holidays is great. The classes, unfortunately we haven't had those recently, but the classes, especially the dance classes, help to bring performing artists and community together. Those are great. And then we also in the club downstairs, they have a beautiful pool, which in the summer months they have the roof open, and that's it's like a little getaway without getting away. You're just right downstairs.
That is our part one. And
Ash, if I may interrupt for a second, we all saw little gray boxes over the video when it was playing. So someone in the chat box recommended that when you play the next video, can you close the windows that you are not using? Because I think it overlays as a gray box. But it wasn't major. It was just covering a little on the right side banner. We saw everything.
okay.
For the next video that you're gonna play, we can like try it again.
Yeah, if that's still, I have everything closed on my, I had to move to my laptop. So, and my laptop can be a little,
No, but we saw it was just a little bit on the right.
There were some small things. We
Okay.
got a real sense. Have you ever taken a dance class at Manhattan Plaza? I just want to know. Yeah, what did you take? What dance class did you take?
It's actually the dance class downstairs. It's run by Lily Colon, who is she was the first Latina Rockette. And it's incredible because you go into the classes and it's primarily a lot of folks who are probably like over 55 and 60. And when we, and like way over, but starting at that age and up. And I think when my partner and I first went, we were like, oh, okay, it's for, it's for adults, which was great. But they're all like former ballet dancers and former Broadway dancers who have like kept their skills up. And yeah, it was hard to keep up. It was incredible. It was incredible.
That is amazing. And that playwrights, that's a play. Like, yeah, the dance class, the Rockette. Yeah. That is amazing.
Yeah. It's Manhattan Plaza has there's very quirky things about Manhattan Plaza. There's a synchronized swim team. That's like fun little fact. There is a synchronized swim team. Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and show the second video. Now I've canceled everything out on my computer, and it might be, I don't know if this is like a laptop issue because I'm running on an old laptop, but if there's any big issue, do let me know. But this video is shorter. And again, like,
yeah, if there's a big issue, then we could always like come back to you and
I'll
you know,
post a link actually. I'll put YouTube links in the.
it's fantastic, fantastic. But you know, we got a real sense. No worries. We really did.
The prompt that you gave for this project, it was the past, present, and future of the block. So in this next piece, it features somebody who grew up at Manhattan Plaza, and the experience of what it is to be a kid in this community, which is, also pretty, as we've learned, a very unique experience of growing up near Times Square. Halloween at Manhattan Plaza it's a high holy day. So obviously, because it's an actor's building, so you see things that it's like, oh my gosh, like this, like the haunted houses, the candy, the costumes, like it's a 3-day extravaganza, like it's very exciting. So so this is a little bit about this next piece. It's shorter. It's a little bit about what it is to be a kid in Manhattan Plaza.
Oh, my heart. Manhattan Plaza is like so my heart, like it hurts. Like I don't even know. It's like my home and then also my entire hometown. I went to preschool there. Everything, like literally everything you can imagine, like being part of a childhood is like happened at Manhattan Plaza for me. Whenever people hear that I grew up so close to Times Square, or like I grew up in Manhattan or whatever, they assume that I had honestly, that I had like no childhood. People are very much like, oh, you were such a city kid, blah, blah, blah. Like it's anonymous, where actually I had like the exact opposite experience. Like it fully is like a small town. I can't walk within a 5-block radius of Manhattan Plaza and not run in, still to this day, and not run into like 4 or 5 people I know. You know this, but like everybody is in the same profession pretty much. So it's like my dad would get home from work, and then we had a casting director who lived across the hall from us. Sometimes the casting director would come over and they would like talk shop. And then my neighbor down the hall, who was the dancer and a singer, and they had a kid who had special needs too. Like we would sort of combine families and like help take care of each other. Sort of that community really raised me. And that also was encapsulated in Manhattan Plaza. Like I feel like I was raised by like 45 people. Like I feel like I was raised by all these different artists doing all this different types of art. And then seeing their kids too, I feel like there were like 25 kids that everyone just sort of like kept their eye on. They'd be like, oh, they're all on the playground. I hope it stays a place that encourages families and allows, I think there's a major blind spot in our industry for people raising kids.
That was part 2.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Oh, I know. You've played little bits of that before, and I just feel so sad that I didn't grow up in Manhattan Plaza. Every time I see it, I just feel like, I want to be raised there too by a ballet dancer. And but yes, it's such a rich world, and I feel like I was so, the mood of it is so apparent to me. And even in the portraits, I know there's this kind of, I feel like it's interesting that you sort of finally identified why, it was complicated to do. And you're like, oh, it's a community and the community is isolated, but there's something really interesting about that too, just how people look in the space, and really lovely work. And is there, and just as part of the whole, is there another part, or is it just these 2 parts?
It's these 2 parts. I have an intro video, but I didn't play because I used some of the same photos already, and it explains if it were to stand alone, the intro video, which I put on my Instagram to promote this, is just a overall what is Manhattan Plaza. But since we spoke about that already, and it just uses some of the same photos to introduce the piece, part 1, part 2, part 3.
Yeah.
So we saw part 2 and 3.
Well, they're wonderful. And I hope they'll live somewhere that we can see them, and maybe somewhere on the Rattlestick website. I just feel like they're so New York. They're just really wonderful. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been so great to spend time with your photos. Ash is not going to be part of the live performance, but I encourage you to look for her photos because they're beautiful and yeah, just so embody that particular part of the city in such a wonderful way. Yeah. All right. So next we're gonna go to Juan Ramirez Jr. Hello. Hello.
Hi, what's up? I like how you said my name. That's what I'm talking about. How you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, Juan, what block did you decide to investigate, and what drew you to it?
So it's actually 4 blocks. It's like an intersection. It's East 149th Street, 3rd Avenue, Melrose Avenue, and Willis Avenue. And it's all called the Hub in the Bronx. And one, it's home. It's home. That's where I was born and bred and raised. There's something that people say to people who come from my neighborhood, and that's like, get off the block and go see the world. And when this came up, I wanted to show the world my block. And so it was just really important to me to be like, there are people here and we exist. Come check us out. We have stories. And that was it was great what you were talking about earlier, about the selfishness that you had, right? But you shared that with us. And that's how I felt about this. And this is just something that's been in my body for a long time and allowed it to, yeah. So it feels good. So that's a mix of a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, I went to the Hub this week, and I was thinking, and you're gonna, in your piece, you deal with some of the history and how it was modeled on Times Square, and but I was thinking, compared to Times Square right now, it's so much more alive. It was one of the most alive places I've seen in the city. Just people and conversation, and I sat on one of the benches, and the little tables, and just there was a lot going on. So much liveliness. So
it is the second busiest intersection in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Times Square number 1, or what's number 1?
I believe it. Yeah.
But yeah, it feels like it's the first right now. I feel like there's not a lot going on in Manhattan still. Anyway, so you're gonna share something.
Yeah. So I'm gonna share a little piece. The piece I did is called Broadway of the Bronx, and it was this sort of monologue style piece, and it became this whole thing. And so I'm gonna invite my friend Angel. He's gonna be the one that's gonna perform. And I told him to behave, so everybody don't worry, he's on good behavior. And he's gonna share his little PowerPoint slide and give you a little information on the borough. All right. So let me just hook this up and invite my boy, and he'll give you. So everybody can see this. Everybody can see. Awesome, great. How you doing, everybody? What's up? My name's Angel. How you doing? That's Angel, aka Guardian Angel. Okay, so welcome to the Bronx. That's right. You spell it D-A Bronx. That's what it is. The exact location is East 149th Street, Melrose Avenue, 3rd Avenue, and Willis Avenue. Yes. Just want to give a little shout out to my boy Juan for putting me on. I appreciate it. They say we look alike. I don't see it. I think I'm cuter. Whatever. Moving on. I'll give you 3 facts. First fact. The Bronx was called Ronkonkoma by the Siwanoy Lenape. Okay, so the map you have behind you is what they called New Netherlands. That's what they used to call our land here. And the Lenape called the Bronx before Ronkonkoma. So if you look at this little part right here, number 43, that represents the Bronx. That little house with the little view of the river. It looks nice. It looks nice. All right, fact number 2. The Bronx is named after Jonas Bronx. That's B-R-O-N-C-K. Okay. When he came over, he actually signed peace treaties with the Lenape. This is a painting that's located in the Bronx courthouse right now. And this is him telling them where to sign. And I think this guy over here, he don't look too happy about it. I don't know. I think he's still, I don't think he trusts him yet. All right. And then fact number 3 is the hub. Okay. East 149th Street, Melrose Avenue, 3rd Avenue, Willis Avenue is modeled after Times Square. So you know how in Times Square, there are 2 triangular buildings filled with LED screens facing each other? Well, in fact, if you go to the hub, it looks just like that. So you have one side triangular building looking across to the other side, looks just the same. So I figured y'all thought that's neat. Cool. So those are the 3 facts. Thank you very much. Follow my man Juan. He's an artist. He needs attention. And thank you, Rattlestick, for helping me, share my story. I don't get off the block much, so this is important to me. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, y'all. Mad love, and I'll see y'all later. Thanks. Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, the great thing about Juan, the great thing is like, I think the knowledge that's going on that will be imparted. Some of that knowledge that's going to be imparted to us on Saturday at the hub is going to be really interesting. I'm also interested to see how folks around respond. Have you ever done any performance there before, Juan?
No, and I'm yeah, that's gonna be fun because as you know, as you've been, you could be giving your heart out, or you could be giving the best Hamlet monologue in your life on that corner, and they will walk by you. So yeah, it's gonna be real interesting. I'm excited because I think at the end of the day, how many people get to say they perform literally at their home, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna go with the flow, and if somebody comes up to me and says hi, look, it's gonna be part of the. I'm excited in a wild way. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think it's exciting. I think it's gonna be really interesting. But I'm really glad that you kind of dived. You got to dive into this piece and kind of tackle home and really look at home.
And you said it, and I have to thank every Rattlestick, Daniela, I have to thank y'all because I it is that it's like my director Candido Tirado, he's from the area too, and we just been talking about like it's not just going down memory lane, it's like going home again. And there's something about that that's just wild. I just could never imagine. I didn't even know that was a thing, and that's in this sense. So you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting time to do it, like it's an interesting moment.
It is, because that area, I almost feel like time's running out in an interesting way, because that area is not gonna look the same this time next year. And so it's wild. It's like I gotta get the story out. I gotta work on it. I gotta, it's interesting. It's wild. Yeah.
It's changing. All right, very exciting. You gotta come see if you're not just a little bit curious about what's going to happen in the hub on Saturday morning at 11. I'm so curious. I'm really excited. All right. Next up, Danielle, are you there? Are you around?
Hi, yes, I am here. Thank you.
So Danielle, tell us about the block you chose and why. What drew you to it?
So I chose 109th Street between Broadway and Amsterdam. The performance on Saturday isn't going to be exactly on that street, but it's still home. So I chose this block specifically because it was my second home in a way. I was born in and raised for the first half of my life in the Bronx. And I moved here a couple years after my dad passed, when my mom met my stepdad. And it was a very interesting transition for me because there was a lot of similarities between my own old neighborhood. Like there were still, the Spanish neighbors who will bring you food and play bachata outside. But there was also like this new thing that I saw college students everywhere and professors everywhere. And there was like bougie food that I'd never even heard of before. And I'm just like, I was a kid, so, I was just soaking it all in. And I'm, my cousins back from the Bronx were like, Mira, you live in Manhattan now. Like y'all made it, you're fancy now. So it's this very interesting like dichotomy of like, in one sense it is, home, and it is, still some parts of it are kind of the hood. And then it's also, it's literally the border between Manhattan Valley and Morningside Heights neighborhoods. So you got like the college students right there. I share like pastry shops and bodegas with them, and like hear them talking about books and like all these things that I hadn't, really heard at the time. And it's like what Juan said, like I'm very, very excited that I get to perform something in my home basically. And it's kind of a goodbye because I plan to move out soon. My stepdad may be getting bought out of the building soon. So it's a goodbye, and it's kind of like gentrification is happening. And so I wrote these two poems as my kind of farewell. I was going to just read some lines that I liked from the poems, and big shout out to Juan. He emailed me and was like, hey, these are some lines that I like. And I agree with him. They were some of my favorite lines, but like all of them were my favorite lines because they're my babies. So since we're limited on time today, I'm just going to recite one of the poems for y'all, if that's okay. It is called To Chinese Restaurants Serving Sweet Bananas, and here we go. Let's get into ghetto Spanish, or rather the first two words I would learn that begin in chin. Jugo China is orange juice, y los chinitos are China walks and corner Concord gardens, but never un nombre por the customers inside them. Pero mi idioma isn't the first link between Chinese takeout and cherished fruit. Let's get into my blasphemous belief that Los Chinitos serve sweet bananas better than restaurants ready to call them maduros. Styrofoam trays trimmed with paper towels save us from soggy bottom slices and oily ink blot exams between maduros passed on tables in aluminum platos. Y no quiero overcrowded cardboard porqueria concealing the miraculously mushy pieces whose burnt edges stay stuck sweet in my teeth. And Mira, doesn't a sweet banana sound like what I'd share with a Fordham Friends pair of arms bearing Matthew Dickman's mysterious human heart reading, General Tso's army loving parents without them pointing out an etiquette accent in how I eat them without a fork? But Ma got to feeling like a gambler when mi querida climbing cholesterol was subdued by semanas o meses, no, seasons of subpar sweet bananas. But then we'd always go back when we got too biracial to not feel burdened by themed dinner tables telling us that all arroz or my fung noodles aren't meant for maduros. Pero la bonchinche is the Concord Garden closed down because Manhattan Valley rents become muy caro for restaurants refusing to serve pre-pandemic preferences for authenticity neatly wrapped in nagamaki, or adopt Flor de Mayo's flair for Chino Peruviano fare con blanquita prices. And thank you. That's one of the pieces. I hope y'all come and hear the other one.
That's so beautiful. I love that. There's so many lines in that poem I love.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I just love the phrase, my blasphemous belief. That feels, that made me made the hair on my wrist stand up. And it
I've
also
had plenty of arguments about plátanos and things with more hardcore Latina friends, so it is blasphemous.
oh, it's serious conversation. It's very, 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 it runs deep. It runs deep. It runs really deep. Yeah, that also, I always get so hungry after I hear that poem. It's inevitable. I just want to have, I want to have the combination. I want Chino Latino. I just want both at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much, Danielle. And I'm really looking forward to hearing them on the block. That is such a, where you're going to read is such a magical spot, I think. It feels, it's so beautiful at 116th at Amsterdam. Yeah, it really is a haven. It's really lovely.
Yeah, such a mix.
What did you say? Yeah, all the academics. Yeah. There was a lot of folks drinking wine at lunch.
Oh yes, I got that from them. I'm 22. I just started.
I was like, where am I? I'm not in New York. I guess maybe I am in New York. Yeah, I think that's sort of the moment we're in too. There's a lot of people drinking at lunch. Anyway, thank you. Thank you so much. It's just been such a delight to have your words in the room.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Now we're going to go to Anthony Anello. Hello, Anthony.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you, Kuzi?
I'm okay. I'm okay. So Anthony, tell us what block you chose and what drew you to it.
For sure. So my block is Gay Street, and I actually came to this project about 2 years ago before this block by block group even existed, and it was in Kuzi's class. I was her student, and the class specifically focused on writing for and about community. And because of where NYU is situated, we were focusing on the Village. And for one of our assignments early on in the semester, we all kind of picked out of a hat and there was a street written on it. And our assignment was to go to that street, interview someone, and then write like a 10-page play response to it. And like the universe was microaggressing me. I got Gay Street, which felt a little on the nose. So I didn't necessarily even want to do it at first. I get like uncomfortable approaching people. So I was like, maybe I'll just make something up and write 10 pages. But I ended up going to the street, waited for a bit. A bunch of people passed by. And finally, I saw this older man taking pictures of one of the buildings there. And he seemed like a good person to approach that probably wouldn't hurt me if I came up to him. So I approached him. It took a little bit of courage. And all I kind of said was, hey, I'm a student. I'm interviewing people about this street. Do you feel like you have anything to say? And he went right into, do you mind if I cry? And from there, he just completely spilled all of these stories about when he lived on the street, memories of the Village. And I don't even think I really asked him questions. I kind of just, clicked record and listened to him. And after maybe about an hour of standing on the street, just listening to him, he invited me out to coffee and we talked more. And we kind of established this relationship that was like built on like complete coincidence of this assignment and being in the same place at the same time. And it felt pretty magical. And I went home and wrote this 10-page thing. I brought it into class, and I felt like I had something special there that I wanted to investigate. And, a bunch of things happened in the last 2 years. I stepped away from the project after trying to turn this 10-page thing into a full-length play. And then I saw this block by block thing. I saw Kuzi was working on it, and it really felt like fate to start working on it again. And I got to finish a draft of it.
Right, right. That's so that's great. So really, the play is my fault, is what you're saying. Yeah, it's completely my fault. In the best of possible ways. But I think once you told me that you were very annoyed by the exercise, like you found it really annoying. I would never have known that. But yeah, all playwriting teachers want to be the person who engender a really good play from a prompt. That's, we love that. So, I feel like there's so many interesting things about, about the process of this play. One of them is that, you are using in the first part of it, you're using a lot of someone else's words. So can you talk to what it's like to kind of do that, and what the process of that was like for you?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a different muscle. It almost doesn't feel like writing. It feels like editing. So for the first 10 pages of this script, which will be shared on Saturday in the form of an audio recording, it's about 2 hours of transcript from that initial encounter, boiled down. So it's a lot of picking and choosing and framing, but then it's like not your words. So in a way, like a lot of it's easy because it's written for you. But then it's a lot of being intentional and kind of figuring out, well, what do I want to make of all of this? Because a play, as we know, is a lot more than just someone on the streets ramblings, and trying to boil that down into something. And then I think that's also throughout the play, what I try to like move away from is like this mix of when is it transcript and when is it fiction, and blurring those lines has been kind of exciting because it's, again, those two muscles of I'm editing, I'm writing, and they both kind of have this marriage.
Right. Yeah. And just so that folks know, you have been sort of given permission to use the words of this person. Like you've talked to him, he's very excited to tell you stories. I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the themes of the play? Because I think it brings up, there's so many interesting kind of rich, rich topics that you touch on and explore that I found very provocative, and you're doing it from really interesting angles.
Perfect. Yeah, so it may be helpful to give a little bit of context for what the play is. So it is fiction, although those lines, it is inspired by this interview, but it follows, two people who meet very similarly to the way we did. Someone on the street, someone interviewing him, and it's kind of where their relationship goes from there. The younger student who's interviewing, his wants are very clear. He wants a play. And the older gentleman wants a little bit more than that. And it's, what are these lines of like an interview? What is that relationship? And how do they maybe like overstep those lines? So something I was really looking at is the intergenerational relationships between gay men, and mentorship specifically. I mean, there's this entire missing generation of mentors. And then in addition to that, when you find these mentors, I think there's also like a great divide. I think as like gay people, as queer people, our sexualities are at the forefront of our identity. And that is, it's always a question. And I think that's something the characters in this play kind of deal with, of like, when is this appropriate? When is this maybe sexual or verging on inappropriate? And that was something I was kind of interested in. I was also interested in just coincidence because of the craziness of how I stumbled upon this story, perspective and gaze, of how two people from different generations can view the same situation. And both of those perspectives and both of those realities can be valid and true. but also very, very different. And my hope is that in the play, you see both or see one, and that works in some way. And then also ghosts. I think there's a lot of just like longing in the play from both characters, of just these missing people in their lives and how they try to remember those people, but also remember those people through each other.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this, yeah, there's this feeling of a lack in the play, you know, just people who are not present feel like they're characters in the play, you know. Yeah. So I think it'll be really interesting to have an auditory experience with, you know, and this has been an interesting play because it was a 10-minute play. It was a full-length play, and now we're going to hear an audio. We're going to sort of experience, walk down Gay Street and listen to the play. And I think, you know, it's an interesting piece because the first and second halves are very different. And I always love that in a play. I love the surprise of a second act that's very different. So, I mean, anything else you want to sort of just throw to us about Gay Street?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just interesting, like what you flagged right there of this piece has had just so many different lives. And I'm very excited to experience this audio recording. I've gotten to listen to it at this point, but to like experience it on the street itself. And I think that for me felt interesting and also connected to that idea of ghosts, of like these voice of these people that are based off of real people that have been in this place, and kind of getting that story there. So I'm very excited to see how it goes on Saturday.
Exciting. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right. And then we go from Gay Street, we go further downtown. David, hello.
Hello. Hi,
Hello. So David, tell us about your street. What did you pick and what drew you to it?
Yeah, sure. So I picked the block Doyer Street in Chinatown. So if you know it, it's like the kind of curvy block within Chinatown, and Namwa Tea Parlor is there. Let me share my screen actually. Can you guys see that? So those are some photos of what Doyer Street looks like now. And if you go there today, they even have the road painted and everything for the summer. But the block itself, what drew me to choose that block was because it has a really long history of maybe 150 years. And it's gone through so many changes. And basically I wanted to see how did the block go from, it was known for a lot of gang wars and violence initially. There were a lot of Chinese Chinatown gangs back then in the early 20th century. So how did it go from that kind of crazy, violent block to what it is today, where there are all these nice restaurants and bars and all these kinds of things, and how has it changed? So my project basically is, it's an augmented reality project, which means that you take your phone and you're going to go to Doyer Street itself. And so you're going to scan these kind of QR stickers right here. I'm gonna stick these on like telephone poles or something on Doyer Street, and it'll pull up these kind of digital objects that you'll be able to view right on the block on Doyer Street. And so to express all of this, the history of Doyer Street, the project is it's a story. It's a fictional story about a family restaurant as it survives through the years, passing down from one generation to the next. It starts in 1910. It's the first part, goes to 1975 and then to 2020. So yeah, you can see in the video. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do a live demonstration right now. So it's best if you come on Saturday to check it out. but you can see some screenshots of what happens. There's the table kind of represents the family restaurant, and the text on top is a script I wrote. And so as you use your phone, you'll be able to tap on the text, and it advances the script lines. And you'll also, if you bring headphones, I got some voice actors who speak Cantonese that will help bring the script and the characters to life. And so, well, give a bit more information.
Yeah.
So it started out, you can see on the top there, that's how my initial sketch of what it would look like initially, of a family restaurant. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was difficult to find out how best to tell the story. Do I do it in a kind of documentary way? Do I just display photos? Or initially, that's what I wanted. But then after starting Rattlestick and bringing the project and talking about it with everyone here, I decided I wanted to kind of take a narrative approach to it and write something, and give, tell it through characters. So once I decided that, it was all just about how do I put it together. And for me, a big part of the project was research. So I wanted the story to be informed by real life events. So the most fun part for me was doing a lot of research into the history of Dover Street. And inadvertently, I looked into a lot of history of Asian Americans and Asian American history, which I was not fully aware of. And so when I came up with this project, Chinatown had been hit pretty hard because of COVID. And I wanted to be able to touch on that topic, of just, all these kind of things that were happening on Dover Street and in Chinatown. And then so I had to subscribe to the New York Times, and they have this wonderful archive of news stories, of which I found the inspiration for everything that eventually went into the script. And for me, it was about connecting these stories that were happening in 1910, and then 1975, and then 2020, especially with the rise of a lot of anti-Asian hate recently. For me, like one thing that I found really interesting was that I chose 1975 because that was the year that a lot of Chinatown residents started to protest, and there was a lot of social justice causes going on then, because a Chinese student was beaten up by the police, the New York police, in Chinatown. And so for me, that was like this kind of very direct connection between all the organizing, social organizing that was happening in 1975. And then in 2020 and 2021 today, it's I found that parallel so interesting happening. And I wanted to be able to connect all these stories together. And
That's amazing. I mean, it's amazing the dive you did, and I think it was so great. I feel like when you found the spine for how you wanted to tell it, like through a restaurant in 3 different times, it felt like it fell into a really just that beautiful thing that happens in a process, like where, you find the container for the project, and it was so great. It was also really, I was so impressed by the deep dive you did into history and what you were bringing in, and sort of finding about the street and the history of Chinatown. I know we have, I have a friend who is visiting who's really obsessed with the history of Chinatown right now. So
okay.
Yeah. I should introduce you. I want to introduce you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The process, this was like the most interesting for me. I did not expect this going in. I thought I would just, make something really cool, but I love research personally. So I would say maybe only 10% kind of what I researched went into the project, because the characters mentioned certain events like, oh, Peter Yu protests or the gang wars, but there was so much more to it, and I hope to eventually expand this project and include more of these histories.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's such a great, I mean, I feel like the way, I mean, I'm so excited to actually do it, you know, because I feel like we've talked about it so much, but yeah, it's such an interesting way to experience something in this way, like, and with this augmented reality, I think it'll be exciting. So, so yeah, amazing. I wonder if we should, like, I wonder if our group has any. I have some questions that you know, I have for just the artists, just a few closing questions, but I just wonder if any of our audience wants to engage in conversation in any way, not to put you on the spot. I'm fully aware of the how that goes, but just if you have any questions for us or for me or about what this process was like, this is a moment you could ask us, and if you don't, it's fine.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to know what it was like for you guys to create these pieces as all these primary elections were taking place in the city, and this sense that our fate was in the balance in all kinds of different ways and all these different personalities. I was just curious how your mood and your thoughts and your considerations and your dramaturgy evolved in relationship to that sort of drama that was percolating around us.
Interesting question. Really good question.
So I actually I was an electoral organizer trying to swing Pennsylvania, which luckily did happen. But so I was you know, doing a lot of voter education and a lot of outreach in that way, and a lot of like volunteer trainings and things like that. And so I felt like I was in this this like whirlpool of anxiety and other people's anxiety, and them telling me about it as, you know, an organizer or a trainer every day. And when I first, so I submitted my proposal for a block by block literally the night that it was due, because I had finished working the election. As everyone knows, it was super drawn out. I didn't know if we got Pennsylvania. No one knew if we won. Me and my colleagues were kind of just like supporting each other and that sort of thing. And we won. And I was like, okay, now I can focus on other things. But for like a week there, it was just like, I wanted to focus on doing this proposal. I knew that I wanted to, you know, write it. I kind of had the ideas in my head, but it was like, I was having this moment of, we're in the middle of a pandemic, a racial reckoning. There's so much Asian hate going on. And I was like, bro, like, who cares? Like, I'm going to write this, but like, who cares? I could probably be spending my time like doing, I don't know, more outreach or like volunteering more. Like, who, like, I want to write about my block, and I want to like kind of memorialize it the way that I know it, and not the like deadness that Trump was saying New York was, or that like gentrification is trying to make New York. But like, who cares? And so the night the project was due, I was having some wine with a friend, and I was telling them about it, and I was like, oh, I said I was going to do this proposal, and they're just like, okay, like you could crack that out in 30 minutes, just go do it. You know what you want to do, just go do it. So I did it, not expecting anything, and it liberated me for a while to write and to actually care, if that makes sense.
Beautiful. Yeah. Any other? Yeah.
Yeah, that I like a lot what you said then, because it's true. Like we were talking about Kusi, how we were talking about how like my neighborhood's so lively. And it was like that throughout the pandemic. And the neighborhood got criticized for it, and then realized that as the hardest hit borough during the pandemic. People were outside because no one was coming to help. They had to do it themselves. And so it's interesting that during this election time and all these things happening, it's kind of true. It was like, that's nice. I have to go and work on this because these stories are closing. This is gonna look different. These people might not be around no more, and I gotta put them on paper. And that's so true. It really became that. And I think I guess even more so because of that, because then it was like, oh, this is going on and things are changing. I mean, and that's so New York, right? We just keep going and we keep going and we're coming back, and here it's business as usual. Other places, it's just a lot of things happening. And I think it, for me, was very much like, it's just so true what she said, that it's just so true. For me, it was very much like, even more so why this had to get done, even more so why this had to be talked about, because there'll be another election, right? And there'll be another election, and there'll be another one and another. So what do we do then? And just creating this foundation for at least like my neighborhood for now, so they feel like they have a voice, because they might not, or they have a voice at least tonight, through you, through everyone here. They have a memory tonight. And I think that was so that's so true. Anyway, I connect with that.
Yeah, I love this question because we just had the obviously the New York City elections, and I learned to go at Manhattan Plaza. Apparently for the city council races, if you can win Manhattan Plaza, you can win the entire race. So a lot of people, just because it's 2,000 people in each complex, so people target this area, and you get, I mean, we were making jokes because we were like, oh my God, this is like an HBO series. We have like the political drama with the actors, and like what they'll do is the politicians will get like the most famous person in the building. So let's say, like, I don't know, she obviously doesn't live here, Angela Lansbury, who did live here. They'll get like Angela Lansbury to walk around to check them in and go just from floor to floor and knock on people's doors. And so one time we got a knock at the door, and my partner was like, why is, so-and-so standing outside? And they were with a politician to get people to get out and vote. And everybody votes in Manhattan Plaza. So it's super political. You get, just tons and tons of literature. It got pretty ugly actually this time around. They had to send around, messages every day. They were saying, do not let politicians into the building. You are not allowed to do that. Do not put things under people's doors. Like it was an event.
That is so fascinating. You take the plaza, you take the district. Who knew? Really interesting. Really interesting. So anything else from our folks? Anyone have a pressing question? Yes, Maureen.
Yeah,
Hello.
I work in the K-12 education space. Thank you, everyone. This has been so great. And I think it's kind of related to the conversation we just had. I was chatting yesterday with one of my thought partners who said, what would it look like to design a school that kids wanted to go to, not because they had to? And so much of the work that I do is related to what you all are doing. And I'm wondering if any of the artists here have thoughts about how this kind of place-based work through different media, because I love how it's poetry, film, theater. What thoughts you have about how we might be able to bring this into K-12 education to really create ways for students to express themselves, to take ownership of learning spaces, and to redefine what learning actually means?
That is a good question. I think Juan, you have some.
That's a great question. I've noticed for me, when I do my workshops, no matter the age, from what it's a bit of a generalization, but no matter the age, I think it really is the technology. And that can mean paper or pen, right? That can mean actual camera, right? But once you really introduce that, they go. My students tend to just go. I start a class on Monday, and they're already ready and we haven't started the class. There's something about them just knowing we're gonna do a theater workshop, we're gonna do improv, and we're gonna learn how to say yes and they just go. Sometimes I gotta catch up. And so there's this thing that's like, for me, it's like the technology. I think technology and art always have this wonderful relationship. And so like, once that camera comes into the room, they could share all one camera. Once it comes in, it's like, they already have ideas. I want to do this. I want to take a picture of this or shoot this. And it's almost, I don't want to say that simple. I feel like that's a dangerous word, but it's almost, I tend to notice it's that specific, that intentional. Just let them touch the camera. Just let them wear the theater mask, put them on stage and let them feel what it's like just to walk across the stage. And they just light up. I really think it almost just starts there in a way. I feel like, I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. That feels very right. Kind of opening the door. And yeah, I think like we're all going to do this thing. I'm going to do it. You're going to do it. You're going to be a writer. You're going to be a filmmaker. We're all at the table together, I think that feels like a really wonderful place to start. So I'm mindful of time and the ever-ending Zoom fatigue that we have. But I wanted to, I'm so tired. I think I'll be tired for life. So I guess I just wanted to ask a question to the artists. And one thing that has been just, to be in conversation with people who don't do exactly what you do, I think has been very exciting. So I wondered what it, if and how, what it's felt like to be kind of in a process with people from different mediums. If anyone wants to answer that.
It was actually, this project probably would not have happened without like having our virtual meetings with all of you guys. Not because I didn't like know what I wanted to do, but because so at one point, like this is kind of a continuation of what I was saying before, but like I gave myself permission to write and to care about the things that I cared about and, give myself that time and space. But it was very much like these parts of my neighborhood that I'm writing about are disappearing. And I want people to understand the love that I have for them. And I want them to understand it perfectly. Like if I could put my feelings for them in a bottle and transfer it to them, I want to do that. And so at some point it kind of kicked in where I wasn't writing anything that I liked when it came to this project. And I think two things kind of helped it continue. Kuzi, I was very honest, which like was very hard to do when you're like getting paid for art. I thought I was going to get in trouble. And I was like, honestly, I haven't like written anything. It wasn't that I hadn't written anything. It was that I hadn't written anything that I liked. And Kuzi says to me, sometimes I just need to have a hooky project, which is like what I do when I should be working on what I'm getting paid for, but like I can't. And so I took that and I applied for a workshop through Cave Canem, a poetry workshop for free. And luckily I got in. And so that gave me the chance to just like write and explore other things because like each week was themed. So it was like, I have an excuse to not do this because that's not the theme this week. And so I also learned in that workshop, and among like other artists that there's a difference between, especially like David's piece and seeing Juan's piece evolve and Ash's as well. I learned that there's a difference between like having exploratory art and authoritative art, and that it's okay for people to be going on the journey with you and to be figuring out that identity or that feeling that you have with you. And I think that's what made the project possible. So without working with artists from different mediums, I don't think that would have ever happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. Beautiful. Any other thoughts on this? Yeah, David.
Oh, yeah, for me, this has been the kind of passion project for me for like the last couple of months. For me, it's been the most important just because of the meaning of it for me and being able to, initially I wasn't sure if I should apply because the work I do is a bit left field and, it's called Rattlestick Playwright Theater. But then after I got into the space and speaking with all the other artists and here, the atmosphere was so welcoming. I didn't feel awkward that what I was doing is in a different sphere of sorts, and it's been so inspiring to do so. Just and as Danielle said, I'm not sure if I would have been able to get to the finish line without the support of the group, and hearing everybody's progress on their own scripts and videos and poetry. And it's affected me as well, as I mentioned earlier. A lot of what the other artists were doing altered the work that I was making and made it more narratively focused, which for me, I think that was the right direction for me to go in. Otherwise, I don't think it would have been, my project would have been as focused as it could have been. So
that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, because you tend to work a little bit more abstractly generally. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, all the playwrights rubbed off on you.
Yeah, that's a really good experiment. Really good experiment trying to take the idea of script and narrative and put it in an emerging new form, which for me, that's like very fun to figure
that's
out.
amazing. That's very exciting. Yeah. Anybody else want to pipe in from the group?
I feel like I'm talking too much. No, go ahead, Ash. Go ahead, Ash. No.
Oh no, I felt like I was talking too much, but I was just gonna say something. It was gonna be like super
Mostly
quick
us right now, so we can talk.
Super quick. No, I mean, all I was gonna say is I think it is so important to have spaces like this that put different mediums in conversation with each other. I think that the way that our industry is structured, it's very siloed and very it's you can't you don't get to engage with other artists, and I think that's a huge it's a major problem. And this is something that we should be doing more of, and more models like this, and having the space to work in the space to discuss and to workshop and to fail and to just go through the process. It is really moving, especially at this moment in the pandemic and with everything else going on in the world. So really grateful for this.
Yeah, what were you gonna say, Juan?
I was just gonna say that I always felt like coming to a meeting, every part of my brain was firing all the time, because I think as a playwright, right, I will work on here or films over here, but everybody's doing so many things. So my brain was always constantly being fed. You can't be inspired too much. That's not a thing. So that's great. And that was just great to have. And to truly say that it's really dope when everybody shares something they love, because then it gives you that permission to share what you love. And that was that in the room. So that overall was like the best for me, because it was like, oh, you love that, I love that too. And we just that was big for me.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to create that, like, love around place is really interesting, and what that, it's an obsession of mine, so I'm happy when people get excited, but place is super important to me. We could psychoanalyze that some other time. But yeah, what it means to love a place and to honor it and to investigate it and to ask questions of it and to imagine it and to make things up about it. Like, I think that's such an interesting exercise, and I think in the grand scheme of things, sometimes place definitely in dramatic writing gets overlooked a little bit, and it's something that's meaningful to me. So Anthony, did you want to say anything or did you?
I mean, I think a lot of what I feel has been said, but just to echo what Juan said lastly, of it's like, yeah, we're all working in different disciplines, but like that commonality of us all picking a place that we love, like that was the excitement that drives me each week, of just everyone's enthusiasm towards their piece, and this just collective feeling of that we were all doing work very important to us. So
Yeah. And for me, it was just wonderful to see that love reflected on the larger project of New York, you know, which I love so deeply and which I think, you know, is emerging from stuff. And I just, it's been really beautiful for me to see it through your eyes and to see your journeys with all of these projects and where you went. And it's been a great pleasure. So join us, those of you who are here, if we've whetted your appetite, come and join us on Saturday. It starts at 11. You can join us anywhere along the route. Jody and I will be there all day. And we will we'll have a sign, which I'm going to make. And so anyway, thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. And I hope I'll see you on the block soon. And if not, we'll I realize like we could get together. We could, yeah, we should have a block by block, you know, our own block party. I said it. Anyway. So thank you. Thank you and thank you to Daniela again for, you know,
and thank
making my
Well.
crazy idea happen, you know, and believing in it. Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kusi.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Kusi. Thank you all.
Thank you all. I'll see some of you soon. And then we'll figure something out. I realized we should do that. All right. We can do that now. All right. Mwah. Bye.
Bye.